Welcome to SpringLaw's Spring Forward Legal Updates webinar series. This series is designed to provide a comprehensive legal overview of key issues related to employment law and human rights in Ontario. SpringLaw is a virtual employment law firm advising on workplace legal issues for employers, employees, freelancers, and executives from a wide range of industries. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar and find it useful and informative. To reach our team, please visit us at springlaw.ca. And now to our presenters.
Good morning and welcome to our monthly webinar. My name is Lisa Stam. I'm one of the lawyers at SpringLaw. I am joined today by our very special guest, Kelly Margani, and I will properly introduce her in a moment, but please do say hello.
Hello, everyone.
First, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us for this month's topic, which is definitely one of my favorite right now, and Kelly gets on fire when she starts talking about it, AI in the workplace. As many of you already know, SpringLaw is a employment and contracts law firm, a virtual law firm in Canada. Welcome to those of you who are new to our webinars. Feel free to ask any questions throughout in the chat function. We've tried to leave some good time for discussion today, so just ask away. Download the slides in the handouts tab. And finally, for any further information on our law firm, feel free to come to our website at springlaw.ca, where we have a variety of resources there, including our award-winning blog, our free policy compliance checklist. You can sign up for our monthly newsletters, and then just more information about our innovative subscription program for employers and some DIY products that we have. Okay, I am pleased to introduce Kelly. She is a coach and director of strategy and growth at the Southren Group. She is responsible for the direction of the business and their brand, and she's a key contributor to their firm's program and service offerings. She is a brain-based coach and certified by the Neuro Leadership Institute, and I also know she is a key driver at Southren Group of integrating AI into everybody's workday. So Kelly, welcome, and why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Thank you so much, Lisa. And first of all, I just have to thank you for including me in this conversation. I am so excited to be here, and you're absolutely right. I light up like a Christmas tree when I get an opportunity to talk about all things AI. So thank you. I get to glow a little bit today. And you covered the introduction so well. I am a coach. I work largely with lawyers and law firms, and I do a lot of strategic planning with businesses that are trying to figure out what their vision is and how to get there. And as part of the work that I do internally with our firm and with all of our clients, I talk about how to get even better at doing all of the things that we do every day. And AI is definitely one of the tools that I encourage using, that I use every day, all day. And I can say that now 100% of my team is using generative AI inside of their workday every day.
Nice. Oh, nice. Okay, you are cracking the whip on everyone. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump in. Before we fully jump in, I just do want to do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, and especially as a virtual firm, all over the place, many, many nations. But these include the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, then the Wendat, and as home now to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We're a law firm, so we always need to do our disclaimer that this is all legal information, not legal advice. Please go see a lawyer if you have anything specific. Here is more details to put in all the fine print about how this is legal information. Okay, today we are going to talk about a few things. First of all, we're going to set the stage. This really is designed for the non-techie mortal. It is not for those of you out there who are inventing all kinds of AI apps already or doing all the things. This is really for us mortals just working away in our workplaces. How do we integrate generative AI into our workspace? We'll have a focus on HR and employment law, people in particular, but it really is for anyone who works. We're going to talk also about how to have fun with AI and really trying to make this very practical, lots of practical use cases. We will talk about how you can, and this is especially HR people will have this, how to address some of the resistance, stress, and fear of AI that you may have in your workplace. Change management is very hard, and we are in a new era. And so how do you deal with that as leaders in your organization? And then, of course, we'll talk about some of the HR law risks, but we have deliberately put that at the end because we really want this to be a practical session for everybody, and then we'll do a bit of a wrap up. Okay, Kelly, take it away from us. Let's set the stage for our non-techie mortals.
Thanks, Lisa. So, the first question that everybody asks when we start talking about how to use AI is, why? Why would I? Everything's going really well so far. Why do I need to introduce this new tool? And that's kind of like asking, why should I use the telephone, right? Why should I use the internet? Everything's going along pretty well. The answer is because if you don't, you'll be left behind. And why not make everything that you do even better, more efficient, more fun, taking less time. So we're really looking at how to do the things that you do every day, but do them a little bit better. Put a little bit of a twist in them. Maybe take some of the heavy lifting away of the more mundane things that you do every day. And listen, some of us are working at capacity all the time, and it feels really nice to be able to take away some of the load sometimes and give it to a virtual tool, a virtual assistant. Doesn't replace us, it just makes it more easeful.
Exactly. I'm going to do a poll, and I'm going to confess that I haven't done it on this platform before, so we're going to give it a whirl.
All right, this is fun.
But here is a poll. We'd love to get a sense of whether or not you are an attendee with lots of expertise, or a beginner, or an expert, just so that we know sort of the level that we're dealing with today. Often these sessions become, preaching to the converted already, but hopefully we have lots of beginners, which would be great.
Yeah. And you know what the great thing, while the poll is happening, sorry, I can't see you speaking right now while the poll is up, Lisa, so I didn't mean to cut you off. But the interesting thing about this is that we're all at the beginning of this, right? And no matter where we are in terms of our experience or our daily use, we're still all at the beginning, and we still have tons to learn. So even if you are an early adopter, and you're using generative AI in the workplace already, you've always got more to learn and more things that you can try and more applications of it. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's actually exactly what I was going to say. So who is the expert in generative AI? Not a lot of people at all, and so we are all at the beginning. Okay, so the results have come out. Oh, here I do. There's a share button here. Okay, so here is the results. So yeah, there's a good mix here. Lots of beginners, some advanced, no experts, which just speaks to the point you just made now. So that's perfect. But
I see a poll result that has zeros all the way down. I don't know if anybody else is seeing that, but the one that I'm seeing.
Okay, 34% beginner, 40% intermediate, and 26 advanced, and then 0 expert. So a good chunk are right in the middle at intermediate.
Yeah, and listen, that's the point. None of us are experts. You and I aren't experts, even though we're daily users and avid users and preachers of all things AI. But the beautiful thing about that is that we all have an opportunity to become leaders inside of our own workplaces, in our respective areas of expertise. We can become leaders if we adopt and use these new tools, which is really great.
And it's all rolling out so quickly, right? I mean, ChatGPT was OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT, as an example of one of the big generative AI tools right now. They were only founded in 2015. That's not even 10 years ago, and ChatGPT only became publicly available in the end of November 2022. So that's it's hard for anyone to claim that they're a super duper long-term expert because it's all still so new. So we're just going to have fun today. Okay, what is generative AI, Kelly?
Well, that's it is a phenomenal tool It is technology that has been created to mimic human conversation, human responses to things. And that's the most phenomenal thing about it, right? The fact that it is generative, the fact that it has been trained with certain information. So that's what the GPT is, right? It's generative, pre-trained technology, right? So it's been pre-trained, but it's been created to adapt to what it's being asked for and what is being asked of it. It allows us to do so much with the prompts that we give it. It lets us be super creative, right? We're not talking to another human being with very limited frames of reference. We're speaking as if we're speaking to a human that has the most vast frame of reference available, right? So we can get really creative with the things that we ask it for, ask it to do. We can learn from it, right? We can ask questions about things that we don't have information about. Of course, you take everything that you get from these generative tools with a grain of salt and do your fact checking and all of that. And I think we can say that as a disclaimer all the way through our conversation today. Take it for what it's worth, check it, but it lets us ask things as if we have an expert in the room with us all of the time, which is incredible. And the adaptability of the tools that are out there now is I mean, it's going at lightning speed, right? It's adapting constantly based on all of the data that's being gathered by the people who are using it all day, every day. So I've been using it since just about the beginning, and the quality of the output is thousands of times better now than it was then.
Yeah, and that exponential improvement and development is huge. And just for people who haven't yet jumped in, it's not just a Google or Bing search. You know, it's not a matter of just throwing in a, you know, like find me best restaurants near me, and then it'll give you 1,000 things to sort through. Instead, it will pull up a conversational answer, and asking for a restaurant maybe isn't the best. That's still subjective. Answering something that requires a knowledge, I think, is the big difference, and that it gives you the answer. So why don't we go over to, here's a sample of what we have done, and we're going to do a live chat for a second. So if anyone has a question they want to throw in there for us to throw in, you can get a sense of what it looks like. But here was my prompt. What is the best prompt for employee engagement? And then it just started typing the answer, and here's the answer unedited that the program gave to me. So I'm going to attempt here to switch over to actual ChatGPT, and you can all see it. Yeah, there we are. Okay, good. Okay, so here's it. It has I'm using the 4.0 version, which is like $20 USD a month or 20 something. Most of the ChatGPT is free for now, but it's based on an older data set. So I mean, that's just a choice. I like the newer data set. Super simple user interface. So it's almost deceptive about what's going on, under the engine with this. But this is it. This is ChatGPT for anyone who hasn't seen it before. That's all, But here's the magic. So go ahead, Kelly. Do you have any suggestions of a question that we could put in here?
Yeah, actually I do. So let's challenge it a little bit and say, first of all, we want to give it some context. Mm-hmm. I also like to talk to ChatGPT as if I'm talking to a human being. I always say, hello, hey, ChatGPT. I am a hiring manager at a small business, and I need to hire an administrative assistant who has great technical skills, is really personable, is going to have some client-facing experience. Can you help me write a job description and a job posting for this role?
So you're much more polite to your ChatGPT. I kind of spit out my questions a little more, but this is a good example. So it normally goes much faster, but because we're on video, maybe it's going to take a second to just do its thinking. But I don't use punctuation. I just throw it in there, and out it comes. So here's the job description coming up.
Now, the beautiful thing about this is that we have given very little context, very little context. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that soon.
Yeah.
But with that very limited context, we now have a working draft that we can bring into Google Docs or into Word, and we can add our context, or we can choose to give the tool some more context and ask it to try again.
Yeah.
Right? But even just with the way that it's laid out, all the sections that we might not have thought to consider. Oh, yes, let's tell them how to apply, as an example. You know, we've got the framework, we've got this done, and it took, what, 10 seconds to do?
Yeah, and here I asked it to rewrite. I had a typing error, spelling error in there, but rewrite to include experience around numbers. And so then it will rewrite it. And that's the constant iteration that you need to do, right? Or I especially at the beginning had to keep saying, write less formal. As soon as you say that you're a lawyer, it starts like talking like a lawyer. And so I would have to get it to like be more informal, more conversational. You know, write email to client that you know, outlines mitigation, the law around mitigation, and it'll do the first draft. Now, I think the key thing that is so critical constantly is this is always just a first draft. We cannot expect perfection from this. You will have to edit and review it 110% of the time. Always, always, always. It will never just spit out the right answer right away. And so when people have, you know, criticisms around ChatGPT, you don't expect perfection. That's not how it goes. And so it of course there's going to be mistakes in here, or a nuance that maybe I'd like different, or it's missing a whole section that I would have preferred. So you still need your brain. None of us, you know, are going to be replaced right away with this. We still need to use our brain to analyze the answer and decide if we like it, and then edit it, you know, for our own voice, for whatever it might be. But having said that, certain things, get it to rewrite it, redo it, rethink it, reanalyze it. And instead of cutting and paste this into your own G-Doc or Word doc and redoing the whole thing like a perfectionist, instead, ask ChatGPT to take the first cut at it, to rewrite.
Absolutely. I've had lots of instances where I ask for revisions so many times that we really get kind of far from where I originally started. And I just tell it, you know what, I think we need to go back to the drawing board, start over again. Give me a whole new first draft. And that's cool. You know, it's the tool does not have feelings about its drafts not being good enough, right? And so that's the other thing, right? And so when we're starting with something that, you know, can have a first draft cut out like this, then we bring in our big brains and all of our context and all of the things that we know how to do to make it better, and we apply it to that draft. So so this you've we were talking, you know, preparing for this, and you had really good comments to say about context and content. Do you want to walk through that? Yeah, and that's really the biggest rule of thumb. So whenever I'm talking to anybody who might be reluctant or who hasn't yet started, or on the other end, who's really afraid of introducing a tool like ChatGPT into their day-to-day work because they're afraid of being replaced, or about functions of their job being replaced, I always start the conversation by saying, we provide context that the tool can never have. We tell it our own lived experience, our own business. Only we know our business and the context in which we work. We have to give that to the tool in order for it to give us great content. But the tools are never going to provide the context that only we can provide. So I'll say that in a different way, which is, the better the context you give the tools, the better the content is going to be. So if I were doing that example, I would be really specific about the kind of person that I'm looking for, the background and experience, the kind of business that I'm running, and the types of people that I serve, so that that job description would have more of my context to give me even better content. And I do the same thing with, you know, any written content. Social media posts, you know, this is who my audience is. This is the tone that I'm really trying to convey. This is what the important part of this message is. Sometimes providing the context is actually giving it documents to work with. So we could have gone entirely the other way and removing any confidential information. We could have uploaded a job description that we already had for our business and asked it to write the job posting that could appear on LinkedIn, as an example.
Yeah.
So we give all of that context. Again, this is who we're looking for. This is the business that they're coming into. Give us the content of a post or a job posting that can support it.
Yeah, and when you're using the free consumer version of a tool like ChatGPT, you need to input the context every time. I'm using the paid version, and you can configure a GPT in there, and add in criteria of what the context is, so that you don't have to do it every time. And so every tool will have all these different versions of that. So I like to contextualize it by what province I'm in, who is my audience, what are my firm's values. I have that in there so that when we're doing certain HR type things, the R5 values are sprinkled within there and part of the context. So it's, I think we're at the beginning of this, and I feel like it's like 10 years ago when I was doing presentations on what is the wall in Facebook, and it's not necessarily your employee who's writing stuff on the wall. Other people can write on their wall, and now it's so ridiculous that needed to be explained. And so, we're going to think that way about AI very quickly, or about generative AI very quickly. But for now, you can go in and configure it to have that context for sure.
Absolutely. Oh, the don't fall behind. Yeah, that's the big thing, right? And this isn't a scolding statement at all. This is really meant to be encouraging, to say, nobody wants to be on the lagging side of anything. And it can be scary to adopt a new tool that you don't know about. But the beauty of these tools is that they're so forgiving. The work that you're doing behind the scenes isn't shown out into the world. Just play with it, have fun with it, get comfortable with it. And, we always talk about learning a new skill, any new skill. And I think, we're going to talk about that a little bit, but this is no different. If everybody is using a phenomenal new tool and their work product is improving, their efficiency is improving, they're doing things in less time with less effort, and you're still over there creating everything from a blank screen, you will be left behind. Yeah. Just like the reference of the telephone, the PC, using the internet, using the cell phone. My gosh, we have our offices in our hands now, and we couldn't even imagine. Like when you and I entered the workforce, we didn't even have email, right? So, and we just want to keep up with where we are.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's jump into some practical use cases. We've given a little bit of a demo, but for, we've got lots of people on the call who are intermediate or advanced, so they definitely already know what they're doing. So let's jump in and make sure that we are providing good content for everybody. So how to boost efficiency while managing the risks. So, when you're using any of these generative AI tools, and again, there's a billion versions of AI out there. Today, we really are only talking about this narrow issue of not ChatGPT, but of generative AI and what that looks like. So you can use it to always be boosting your efficiency, particularly when you're doing content creation. You can use ChatGPT or any of the tools like ChatGPT to really help establish your own expertise and thought leadership, both internally within your organization, if you're an early adapter and using it well, but also with external content, with the substance of your materials, and being able to always have this right-hand tool to vet content through, to deepen the substance of your content, to make it much faster to produce the content so that you have more time to edit and expand on it. You'll be able to just keep promoting yourself as or positioning yourself as a leader on all of this. The draft generation really is a big part of all this. It can really generate drafts from a minimum input and then really spark the creative process. And that's something that I have found really useful to me, is to throw in a question where I kind of know the answer, but what are some other layers that I need to think about? And it's a brainstorming tool that I have found quite useful. And then the other way that I find it really helps boost efficiency is to I'll put in a question and then say, provide examples, tell me the source. I always want to know the source, but provide examples. And so that real life examples of applying your content, you can just obtain that quickly through ChatGPT and the other generative AI tools.
Absolutely. And back to just the point of efficiency, we all have limited cognitive capacity that we can reach in any day. We all have lots of jobs that we need to get done in any day. And when you think about saving those scarce resources of our time and brain power, we all flag toward the end of the day, right? So when you think about really conserving the big brain power for the tasks that really most need it, we're being efficient with the resource of ourselves, of our employees, and we're saving our businesses money by using those resources for the things that they most need to do themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
and so there's a cost savings, there's a human resource saving, there's a preservation of wellness saving. This goes so far when we remove some of the heavy cognitive lifting that can drain us and save that for other uses. So the efficiency points are varied.
Yeah, well put. It's not just saving time, it's saving energy, brain energy as you go along.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, presumably we're preaching to a lot of converted already. So how do you roll this out in your organization, really encourage your teams to use it? What are some strategies around that? So first of all, for sure, start small for better adoption. And my team, if they're listening, they know that I'm the worst at this. I would just want to jump in and have everybody love it as much as I do, every shiny new squirrel. So I know that I'm not good at this. This is what one ought to do, is first steps, really start small, expose people early on to this is like change management 101, really start small. Learn through play. So really thinking through how to make it fun and low stakes so that people aren't freaked out every time you're asking them to use this brand new tool that they're really unfamiliar with. And so, doing fun stuff, we've used it in some of our in-person meetups as an icebreaker, for example. That's just a fun thing, zero stakes there, right? Like just to talk about what the response is. And it's really more just for people to keep using the tools. Explore, really, think about where it can be used within your organization, and have people, they will adapt and drink the Kool-Aid a bit more if they're an active stakeholder in all of this and can actually provide the really great input on what would be an effective use of the tool in all the different areas of the organization. And then sharing user experiences and testimonials from each other about how it works and what was a fun thing to do, and what is a great prompt that all of a sudden produced a really fun result for you, or an effective result, and just having a space to share the use experiences so that we're all learning together and really avoid the silos. I mean, a big part of all of this is it's pulling on shared data, and it's machine learning based on a shared data set, a giant data set. And so, speaking with each other about how we can adapt and how we're using it, I think will help everyone just get examples from each other, because we're all at the beginning of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that I think is very effective when you're introducing, or when you're encouraging your team to start using the tools, is to empower them to find ways, as opposed to telling them the tasks that you would like them to use it for. Empower them to think of the ways that their own job could be enhanced, or think of the ways that their own skill set could be enhanced. Tell you the things that they're most interested in learning about this new tool, so that it doesn't feel like it is competing with them, but rather it's a tool that will make them better. And having AI policies all over the place, and I'm sure you'll cover this shortly, but the first thing to do before taking that first baby step with even playing with the tool inside a workplace is to have a policy, a company policy that determines, what they can and should and can't use the tools for. Everybody needs to understand that this is, at least with the open source generative AI, with closed source, it's a little different, and the data set is more restricted. But with the open source, they have to be real careful.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, and in our next section, when we talk about resistance and change management, your comments as someone who's a brain coach will will help us understand how to empower people. I think that will be useful for all of us. So here's some examples of use cases for your HR team and your workforce, just to get some samples of all the different ways. This is one of a billion lists that you could come up with on this. Automating all of your routine inquiries. So having basically a virtual HR assistant handle some of the common answers. There's a lot of frontline answers that could be automated and really save the time of having to answer the same thing over and over in email. When you're onboarding new employees, you can have interactive onboarding experiences, guiding them through necessary documentation, for example, or training schedules, company culture. You can have a chat bot that will answer a lot of these FAQs. It'll really help streamline the onboarding process, especially if you're in a higher growth area where you're doing a lot of onboarding. For employee training and development, you can develop ChatGPTs that can quiz employees on materials, provide examples and explanations. For your recruitment, I think recruitment is where there was really early adoption for this. Several years in the making now, and there were some early experiments gone a bit awry. In the recruitment, if you're a part of a large organization that's receiving thousands of applications, you need a tool to get through them, to sift through them, and figure out which applicants candidates you're going to be interviewing. And so that has been, there's some fun stories from early on of Google and Amazon and the big companies using these, and in the early days relying on historical data sets that generated pretty discriminatory results. So I'll talk about that at the legal risks section, but the recruitment assistant, I think that's probably something that HR people already are increasingly aware of and have been using it for a while. For performance management, you can have integrate your ChatGPT into performance management systems by providing feedback on input from performance reviews. If you get a very long-winded answer from one of your managers, you can throw that into ChatGPT as a succinct version. I was in a group a month or two ago when somebody was saying they know they have a problem with writing in a nice voice, that they're like blunt and direct, and so they will often run their answers through ChatGPT and say, please make it nicer. And
yeah.
help with the email to help with the tone, right? A little more friendly, because they just want to get stuff done. And so same thing with your performance management feedback. You could actually run it through and just get it to be, help it land better. Employee engagement surveys, policy updates and communications. You can throw a policy in there and say, provide a summary email to give to employees. Again, you absolutely will have to edit that when you take a look at it. But if it even gets you 50% of the way there, that's huge. You've just cut your time in half to get this thing done. So it really is worth it. You can use it for handling harassment and complaints. I think, when we're getting into dispute resolution and these highly charged emotional situations, there's going to be all kinds of guardrails that we're going to need and experiences to figure out how to do these things. But in terms of providing a safe or an anonymous way to report in harassment, there's lots of different ways that you can use ChatGPT to help with guiding people through the process and providing the information on how to do this. So I would say for now, I could be wrong, but I doubt we're there yet with it using for any decision making in disputes. It's more all the stuff around it, getting the facts together, sharing the facts, sharing, best interest positions, etc. All of that has been around for a bit already. So this one, the lawyer in me has a wee bit of a caveat on this one, but it will get there. Here's just another list of examples. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's, we share the slide deck after so people can pause and take a look at this. But there's definitely, just to help people brainstorm, what are the different ways that you can use it in the HR context?
I have one that I'd love to share, Lisa, which is, so for all of our clients, we do a DISC assessment. It's just one of the many psychographic, psychometric tests. And with that information, we learn a lot about ourselves, right? We also learn if a company does DISC assessments for all of their employees, you sort of know what your counterparts are on the DISC spectrum. If somebody is having a challenge, continuous challenge communicating with somebody who has a very different style than they have, they can use this tool to say, this is the message that I need to communicate. I'm a D, but I'm communicating it to someone who's an IS, or whatever, whichever metric you're using. Help me communicate this using their language. And I'll do it.
I like that. That's really cool.
Which is really cool, because sometimes we run up against those types of issues which have nothing to do about the competency of either individual. It's just how they're communicating to each other is proving a challenge. And this is something that can smooth out the edges, which is a really cool way to use it.
Yeah, that's very cool. I like that a lot. The number 10 here, rewrite your cranky email with a nice compassionate tone on rainy days, but in addition, it's more nuanced than that. It's not just making it nicer, it's also making it land in a way that will really resonate with who they are. That's very sophisticated.
Right.
Yeah. I like it. Here's a whole bunch of prompts. I think if you take nothing away from today, it's that prompts are everything, and really thinking through how to write effective prompts is really the key. And you can ask ChatGPT, give me this. That's exactly what this list is from. Give me a list of good prompts for HR people, and here's a whole bunch of them. Ask ChatGPT how to improve your prompts, like what other information does it need, and there's also just a ton of conversation online right now about this, and lots of people putting out lists and ideas. And so when I talk to other people, I get lots of great ideas. One that I tripped upon about a month ago that I use all the time now is putting in prompts for formulas for an Excel sheet. So I can just put in there, like, how do I calculate the length of time, from cell X to cell Y, for determining severance period lengths of notice, and so I've always been a spreadsheet girl, but now my formulas have gone up a level because I just throw it into my ChatGPT to get all kinds of ideas on how to do that. So, and that's just getting out there and paying attention to some ideas online. You can really get some. It doesn't occur to me all the time, right? You get into your space, and then you get ideas from talking to other people as well.
I think this is probably the area of greatest opportunity, Lisa. Figuring out, learning, like really undertaking to learn how to prompt these tools properly,
right,
and effectively. The data sets are getting better and better all the time, but we have to get better and better on the front end as the user of them. And so if you're going to invest time and energy in any part of this exercise, it's figuring out how to be an exceptional prompter of a generative AI tool, because the context, again, I come back to context all the time, but the context that you're able to provide, the things that you're able to ask it to consider when formulating a response, and what you just said, what else do you need to know from me in order to give me the best answer you can give me? That's question one a lot of time. So it really is about become the best prompter and primer, become the best context you possibly can when you're using any of these tools.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here's where we're going to see Kelly's training come to light as well beyond AI and ChatGPT. You're addressing resistance, stress, and fear. I'm going to hand it over to you, Kelly, to start talking through how we can really, help address all these issues in our workplaces.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started to touch on this a little bit earlier, which is to, from the very, very beginning, when you're introducing this to your teams, to encourage them, have them be stakeholders in what the business is doing on the whole with respect to rolling in the use of these tools, so that they don't feel threatened by it or, at risk from it, but so that they feel empowered by you and by getting behind the integration of these tools to make their lives and jobs better. Get really curious, right? Ask people what their resistance is, right? We can't address it unless we know it. So what are your biggest concerns about using generative AI in our specific workplace or in your specific role? What concerns you? What excites you? What are you most interested in learning? What will you get more of out of your life and your work if some of the more mundane tasks that you do are lightened up a bit? What will you have more time for that you don't currently have time for in your day? If you had 30 extra minutes in every day, how would you spend it? Those are the kinds of things that we really want to know from people when we're introducing any new way of doing things in the workplace, but specifically a tool like this. So if you ask people what they're most excited about, what they're most scared about, what they most want to know and learn, then they feel like they're involved in the process. We're on the quality control side of this, so I will address this piece, which is take everything with a grain of salt. This is an incredible data set, but make sure that everybody understands that this is not going to replace their need to read, reread, edit, reread, put it through the tool again after you've edited it, ask it to give you readability. This does not replace our human brain or our context at all. We have to edit absolutely every output. We have to bring our critical thinking into this. I know you've got lots of experience in this because you use it all the time too. So where would you add?
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, I assume that we have to edit 100% of the time. I think that's such a critical piece. And when I'm throwing in information, I make sure that I'm, for example, if you were to just say what's the, in the employment law world, what is the termination package for an employee with 10 years and is 53 years old. Keep an eye on what it's spitting out. It might be defaulting to our federal legislation, for example. If it spells labor without a U, I'd be very nervous, if it's, and so then you need to put it back in for an employee in Ontario because our legislation is different here. Each jurisdiction has its own legislation. So this is where it's context. And it's not a fault thing, but I think we have to own the fact that we have to put in the right context to get the right output. And that's the learning journey. We don't always know what is the input that we need to be adding to it. And so I find with quality control, that can be a real resistance for people where they see that a couple of times and like, forget it, it's wrong. Or, it will hallucinate cases. There's that infamous case of the poor lawyer who put all these hallucinated cases into his book of documents. And then the judge is like, that's not a thing. So
it's not actually a case.
Humiliating and nobody wants that. So of course you should go and read the actual case, and you should check that is what the legislation says. Or you should check that that's what the handbook says that you uploaded. I think it's very still critical to use your brain. For me, for now, I like to use it a lot more around throwing in what I know might be a lot of the answer and saving me tons of time to write the output. That feels like a very safe place to start. But I don't assume that ChatGPT or any of these Gen AIs are correct all the time. I still have to assess. So quality control is certainly an issue, but we can't expect perfectionism from all the robots. That's just not how it goes.
Well, we don't expect perfection from our employees either, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's why we have each other, you know, to learn from, to check our work, to make sure that what we put out is right. Like, we wouldn't take a first draft from a junior hire,
Yeah.
and send it out into the world unchecked. Well, treat this exactly the same way, right?
Yeah.
And you're also teaching it to think more like you the more you use it. You're teaching it to give responses that you accept more, and continue to iterate with it, continue to grow with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Worker displacement and job design. So in terms of managing the risks and fear of employees, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, like I said, the workers who are going to benefit the most from this are the people who adopt it and use it early and get really, really great at using it. So that will be a skill that they can market themselves with, as opposed to looking at it entirely as something that will replace them. Will it replace certain functions? Yes, it will. Will it replace all people? No, it will not. And so, you know, we all know that the tasks that are highly computer driven will be largely replaced by this technology. But the people who understand how to use the technology to the best output are people who are going to grow. And sure, some of the tasks that they've been known for, that they've held on to throughout their whole careers, may be replaced, but then they have an opportunity to pivot and look in new directions for ways that they can continue on their improvement journey too. So I think that job redesign is really critical, and that individuals are encouraged to take ownership of where they want to be in that. You know, what are the skills that you want to learn? What are the things that you want to learn how to do with this tool? And sort of redirect from the fear of complete displacement or replacement, and look to the place of, how can I do this and how can I make this work for me?
Yeah, and I think, you know, every new development of whether it's industrialization or tech, it expands our workforce. It doesn't contract it, but it does shift things. So the example that I love from that I got from Richard Susskind, a future of law author, is he in one of his books he introduces. He talks about all these jobs that are, it's pub in London that has pictures all over the wall of jobs that don't exist anymore, but the thing still exists. So like the candle maker, we don't have candle makers anymore, but we all often still use candles for fun, right? Or the shoemaker, but we all still wear shoes. You know, it expands it. Or, you know, when the phone came in, the computers came in, cell phones, spreadsheets, I think, are probably one of the biggest game changers around. The internet, the cloud, none of that shrank our workforce. And so I really just don't buy that AI is going to shrink and eliminate, but it will absolutely shift things. And people will get left behind. And I think, you know, as HR, as compassionate human beings, we want to help those in the workforce that maybe aren't wired to handle change well, that are uncomfortable, that are nervous, that get anxious with new. They want their lane. They just want, and they've got lots of stuff going on at home maybe, and now they got to learn something new. There's always those people, and so how do we help them, right? Their job may shift, and what does that look like? And I think the messaging around, we're rolling out this new tool, it doesn't mean we're shutting things down. We are expanding everyone's opportunity. Somehow that message has to be part of it all. The other piece around this is around worker displacement and job redesign. The labor lawyer in me knows that you need to sync that up with your collective bargaining agreement, your handbooks, and your training practices. So lots of CBAs will have some sort of tech development article. So and this like goes back to not AI, but all the different evolutions over the years, and that you need to consult with a union and before you're implementing any major tech changes. So just keep an eye, if you are in a unionized workplace, to make sure you're taking a look at your CBA actually, and see if that may have some impact on that you might be looking down the eye of a grievance if you don't do this carefully. So just make sure that you're syncing it up with the documentations that govern your workplace. How to master new skills in change management in the workplace. Kelly, what do you think? I have to come back to this one.
Go slow, go slow, go slow.
Hmm.
Communicate, 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 and then communicate again, right? Those are the two biggest things, right? Give people assurance that this is an improvement. Again, this is really the theme of everything we're talking about. This is going to improve the way you do your job, the work output in your job. It's going to improve you as a human being if you learn how to use this technology really, really well. That's a new skill set that you have. Being really clear about what the expectations are around its use. Be really clear around introducing it as, not being about replacing you, but about enhancing you and making you more efficient so that you have more time to do other things that are really vital for this business. And we said before, but involve everybody early. Be really curious about what they're scared of, what they're excited about. Get their input on the things in their individual role that could be improved, right? Because as leaders and managers, we don't always know each of the day-to-day tasks down to the minutia that the individual doing the role does. So involve them in those conversations right from the start so that we can get really clear visibility on where we can see improvements. I love striking an AI committee in a business, in fact, that has representation from all the different parts of the business, from management through admin, HR, sales, whatever parts of your business exist, legal, strike an AI committee so that these people feel empowered to come up with ideas for what's best for this business and taking into account all of the parts of it.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great idea. Yeah, and providing opportunity to use it in a low or no stakes environment, I think, is a really important place to start.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Okay, at some point we have to talk about the legal risks. So now is that moment. We'll talk about it. So of course there are legal risks to generative AI. Of course, there was a question that we got through around discrimination risks with recruitment. So I'm going to skip to the second bullet and answer that question to make sure we answer it, and then I'll talk through all of them. So with discrimination and bias is a real risk, because garbage in is garbage out. That's the rule of all AI, where you're using a data set that you didn't manually hand make, right? So you're relying on and having faith in this data set. If that data set is based on historical data, so for example, the one example of one of the big tech companies that ended up not fully rolling it out during their piloting, they started to discover that having the AI tool go through all of their applications was learning to value certain experiences that historical applicants mostly had. So certain frats that were all male, certain sports that tend to be more male heavy, certain schools or programs. And so it started really valuing male experiences, because that's the historical data set, because we still live in a world where often you're the only woman at the table. And so it's and so making sure that whatever data set you're using is really reflecting where you want to go, not necessarily where you've been. And so that questioning that data set is hard, right? I mean, you can talk to your vendor rep, they're not going to know. ChatGPT is now based on this giant data set. How do we know? So I just think we're now in this moment where it's a bit complicated to really know exactly where the biases are coming from, and we have to be even more aware and critical of this output to take a look and see if all of a sudden it's spitting out all kinds of, as a blunt example of male candidates who all went to this one frat, like it's you're not going to get any sense of diversity in your workplace. So that's probably a more obvious example, but that the AI is neutral, but it's only as good as its data set. And again, if the data set's historically biased, then you get what you get. So being aware of that and being careful about how you're using AI in that front, I think it's going to take a bit for us to sort through that issue.
Definitely. And I mean, we have human biases too, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to be really careful about overcoming our own human biases.
Yeah.
And so in a similar way that you might train a human being, individual, to go through a stack of resumes and not just surface the people who have tons and tons of volunteer experience. Maybe because they had the privilege of not having to work during those hours that they were volunteering, as an example of privilege versus, need to work. You can train the generative tool that you're using to spot those blind spots as well. So again, it's giving the proper context, but once you give it the proper context, you can actually get neutrality that doesn't exist with a human being during the first vetting.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of data privacy and security, that's probably one of the biggest things that everyone's talking about, especially the naysayers of all of this, that you're throwing out all your confidential information to the universe and throwing it all on the internet or wherever, the open data set is sitting. So I do think, being very careful about how much you're using AI systems to monitor any employee performance and behavior is very important. Employees do enjoy privacy. Ontario has a weird patchwork of privacy laws that employers can kind of dodge through sometimes in some circumstances. If you're unionized, definitely not. So being very careful about how you may be using any AI tools for employee monitoring, I think will be very important. So screenshots, that kind of thing. Data protection and data security. This is a really important issue. And so, the tools are figuring that out. ChatGPT, as an example, has a company version now that will help close, ring fence what data is being used. But we're in this moment where if we start having all these closed off data sets, then we lose the benefit of the underlying giant data set that's producing great answers. So there's a real, on the Venn diagram of worries, those are overlapping quite a bit, and we're going to have to figure out, good quality versus data privacy. We're going to have to figure that out. Having said that, it is so easy to just strip. Every time you put something into ChatGPT, I will always strip out client names, like 1,000%, and just put in, ABC Co. Just like quickly throw in, so if you're trying to get it to sort through, the different bumping rights of 3 different companies, just create new, company A, company B, company C, and it's easy enough to strip it of confidential information. That should be a no-brainer for everybody all the time. Do not put patient, client, customer information into the system, period, ever.
Or proprietary company information of your own business.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, but it's easy to strip it of that when you're doing that.
It is. It is.
It's 11:28. This is our last section, so I'm going to just quickly talk about IP issues. This is where I think we're also going to be. We're in novel, uncharted territory when one of your employees is creating something through an AI platform. Who owns the IP of that? I think we're not going to. I doubt we're going to get into a world where prompts can become trademarked or anything like that. But I do think thinking through your proprietary information and what's happening with it, and by default, anything an employee does is IP property of the employer anyways. But if you have some vendors and contractors, it's more gray area there for sure. And then contractual and liability issues. If you are using AI for some of your decision-making processes, it may be unclear who's liable for those decisions. I can tell you right now, an employer is just liable for everybody in their workplace all the time, unless that person is really acting outside their normal course of duty. But that vicarious liability will be triggered most of the time. So, employers do need to be careful about that. And then you'll want to think about your contracts, whether or not you want to update any uses or limitations of what they can use in with any of the AI tools. So this is, handbook, contracts, really syncing up your workplace rules with the usage that you want to be allowing. Ethical considerations, I don't really have much to say on that. I mean, I think the thing is, just be transparent that you're using it and that we're all learning together, right? Get employee consent in the same way that you would if you're doing regular monitoring, right? That's already the law. So, you know, involving your employees in conversations, your customers, your clients, your patients, being transparent will get you most of the way when it comes to being able to use it.
Yeah. And I think we have to be mindful of, you know, you can't have employees creating something 100% AI generated and passing it off as their own original content. You know, we can say AI assisted, but you still have to add you've added the context, you've gotten some content, you've edited the content. Just be really honest about that. You know, there can't be shame in hiding that.
And to be clear, it's not that I don't think this is a super important topic, ethics in general. There are giant think tanks and committees and people really spending time on this. I'm sure there's thousands of PhDs being written on this as we speak. The ethics of AI is super important. We've got too few egos that are running all these great big tech companies that are rolling this all out to us. And so I do think that the ethics around all this is critical to think through. It's just out of the scope of this particular webinar.
Exactly. We could do a whole other one on the ethics of the use of AI. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, we're out of time, so I'm going to, and we didn't get many questions that came through, so I think, again, we're all learning together, so who knows. So as our wrap up, jump in. No one's an expert. I hope that's clear. Have fun. If you can love it as much as Kelly and I do, then your life will be much better. It'll boost your efficiency, help you stay ahead of the curve. Support your worried employees. There's lots of them. Support them and figure out how we can roll this out without triggering everyone's anxiety about losing their job. And it expands, not contracts, the economy. And then just keep paying attention to the risks while you continue to explore, but don't stop exploring because of a risk. Anything else you want to add to that at all, Kelly?
I mean, I will just reiterate, you know, the through line, get really great. Just get really great at it. Be the best context you can be, and just, I mean, keep track of how it impacts your work life. Keep track of how much more efficient you are, because that's something I'd be really curious to see.
Yeah, that's actually good. Yeah, in terms of helping to continue to roll it out. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today, Kelly. I know that you are you've got a deep use of this already, so it's really fun to hear how you're rolling it out and how you're helping workplaces with this. There's Kelly's contact information at the Southren Group, so there's the website. Feel free to go over to there. They've got a bunch of fantastic coaches. I'm a huge, long-time fan. That's my bias. I think they're fantastic.
Thank you.
To learn more about our team, come to our website, springlaw.ca. Feel free to connect to any of the lawyers on our team. Our next webinar will be in September. We take the summer off, so from webinars, not from working, but from webinars. So our next webinar will be September 18. At this point, the topic will likely be tricky terminations, so we'll get confirmation down the road. Come to our website, and you can sign up for our newsletter and get updates on that. Feel free to follow up with any questions you may have, either to Kelly or myself. Please follow us on social media. We're on all the places: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. This will all be put onto our YouTube channel, so please feel free to come through that. Oh, Teresa, we love you too. I'm reading the chat as we go. Oh, nice. I'm glad that it was informative, Teresa. And please do, sign up for a new monthly newsletter. That will really help you keep up to date with both employment law and then if there's any future webinars for us. Thank you again, Kelly. And I hope you have a great rest of the day, and for everyone else to have a great rest of the day as well. Thank you for attending.
Thanks for having me. And thanks everyone for coming.